everyone, I hope you're doing well. So today I thought I will film a video which has been really requested and so well received. Thank you so much for all of your amazing comments and all of your fantastic support when I shared this new style that I have been exploring. And it's basically a landscape in color. So I love adding color to my paintings, and so here we go. Today I want to give you like a summarized, maybe slightly easier approach to this. So today we will not do the little cottages, we will just focus on the landscapes, and I will share how I kind of build on things and what kind of art supplies I'm using. I will be filming my next course focusing on colorful landscapes, and that is coming with all the step-by-step techniques, and every single bit that I can share with you will be in there. So just keep in mind that if today is slightly more summarized and you'd like more in-depth, that will be available later in October as an online course. So also what I'm working on right now is just the finishing touches of editing a fresh, brand new course that I have filmed on the mushrooms, and that should be coming very soon, and I'm hoping to launch it like within the next few days. So you will hear about that very soon as well. Okay, so what I've done is I gave myself a landscape. As you can see here, I have mostly worked in squares, so pick what shape you would like to create your landscape in. So next thing, I need a pencil, and pencil of choice is, I'm currently looking for it. Oh, here it is. So this is the pencil that I'm currently enjoying illustrating everything with. What I will do is, first of all, I'm thinking, do I want to create landscapes and have layers of it, or would I like to have like a big field and then filling certain areas? So that is something that you should ask yourself. So you could do just like lines and lines and change up things and create more detail, or if you like to have, for example, larger areas to focus on, then give yourself one big area. It could be in the middle, it could be in the corner, whichever way. Just think of your proportions. And then let's see, I'm going to have another field coming in like that, and less rounded, so more straight. And then we'll have these like kind of bushy type of greenery. So let's see, I'll have something slightly different shaped, and one maybe going up like this. Then, so we have 1, 2, and then this is a 3 layers. Now we're creating the 4th layer, and again, think how you want that layer to look. So for me personally, I would like to have something like this. Something like that. And like one of those shapes. There could be like maybe a rounder element. So like a rounder tree. And now I would like to take my kneadable eraser, because we're going to work with watercolor. Also, if I haven't mentioned, we're going to use watercolors as a base. I might use some gouache, acrylic gouache. I might use some gouache or acrylic paint. I have not decided yet. Usually this is very much decision in the moment, how I feel. and also pencils. So watercolor pencils, or rather watercolor and pencils, colored pencils are usually the two main mediums that I use. Apologies about my voice. I am overcoming, I've got a few days behind me of some intense flu. It felt like a flu, but at the same time I felt like it was very quick, very intense, but very quick. So I can't complain. Okay, color palette, again, I won't go too deep into it. I've got some leftover watercolor squeezed out from filming an online course, so I'm going to use some of them. I'm going to grab my latest put together Colourful Landscapes palette. So if I haven't mentioned why I use the kneadable eraser, it's because it's a different experience. First of all, I don't like rubbing things out. What drives me absolutely nuts is if you use one of those and it just gives you these little, black bits that you need to get rid of. I just do not like that. Also, this kneadable eraser is a lot softer and you can just tap. Some people like to roll, and you remove everything quite lightly without abrasing the paper, which is what I really, really like. The key element of this style of illustrating or painting is that it all works in layers and you have to be really patient. And this is very different to my usual kind of work where I like things to be immediate and impactful and quick, because I don't have usually the time. However, I'm pretty sure if you're attracted to landscapes and colors, you're probably already aware of that. You can't immediately, just throw color onto the canvas because it all will blend and it becomes one big mess. So basically, the way I'm going to approach this is, first of all, I'm going to think, what color would I like my field to be? I'm going to use the Gallows Thick Green from a palette. So once I have released my online course where I'm sharing the palette and all the colors in there, once I've done that, then I'm going to wait a little while, maybe a few days or a week, and then share it here on YouTube as well. I just want my students to have the privilege to see what the colors are first, because it's so exciting. I personally always love seeing what kind of colors there are in a new palette. So sometimes if it's a large area, I just could do one layer of color, especially if it's a color that has a lot of granulation or interest to it, then you really don't need to do that much. If the color is not as interesting, you may want to add and just play around, just add a couple of colors to it, just to help it. The Agallo, I find, has a bit of, well, not the Agallo, the Thick Green. I'm talking about the particular color, not the brand. So it has a little bit of this opacity and milkiness to it. So I find that quite often I like to add something to it just to bring a little bit more interest. So I'm going to also drop in and mix in a little bit of my chartreuse. So my watercolors are handmade with the high quality artist grade pigments here in UK. I found a manufacturer who can do it for me in large quantities. They are available on my website, alyonacreates.com. So here we go. I think I will leave it at that, keeping in mind there will be a little bit of detail that I will be adding thereafter. So that's the field done. The next thing you can do is like a shape that is away from here. So we could do, for example, a couple of shapes here that are not touching, and then by that time these might be, like this one might be dry, so we can go on and do the other shapes. So let's see, I want to use like a slightly more darker color towards here. So here I'll probably go for something. I'm going to mix my cobalt teal here with a bit of my green gold deep, and that will give us this delicious juicy color. Think of your own color palette. It can be colorful, but slightly different, like it doesn't have to scream color. I'm going to go for all juicy colors in this particular piece and just play with contrast and things like that. So you can, you know, even go for a slightly more muted color palette or whatever speaks to you best. These are obviously colorful landscapes, so that's why I am enjoying it that way. I am next going to go into my, I think this is, what is this? Perylene green. And that's a gorgeous one. Let's see, here I might do, so this is now Serpentine. It's no longer hot, but I'm still enjoying these kind of colorful and vivid and vibrant colors. Just reminiscing about the summer. And let's face it, it never actually looks like that. This is just, you know, what comes from your mind, your imagination. So at this point, I think I will wait for things to dry, or better yet, if you have a heat tool, just use a heat tool. Recently, I have been asked in one of the videos, I don't remember if I answered. I'm sorry, it's just been such a really busy time, and I've been off sick for a few days. But the tool that I'm using is just a basic one from Hobbycraft here in UK. So if you're from another country, whatever craft shop you have, just look for one of those tools. They're usually not too expensive at all, and I had this one for years. It's not the prettiest to look at. I wish it was kind of black or matte or something, but it does the job. Just be aware that it's extra hot, so don't bring it to your skin anywhere, and don't like burnish things too much. Do it from a little bit of a distance so it's more natural. Also, sometimes it can warp the paper too much. Kind of combine natural air drying with the heat tool. Okay, now I am going to think of perhaps adding a little bit of pizzazz, and at this point I can't even see the name of the color, so I can't tell you exactly what it is, but like I said, I will share all the colors in due course. Okay, so here I'm just going to go right onto the edge, and this bit takes a bit of concentration because you want to be not leaving any white line. Equally, you don't want to go over the other color, so just be very precise here. Just slow down and hone into the enjoyment. So if I see a hard edge here, I'm just gonna go and with my brush just disturb it slightly, tickle it. There you go. So that's that. I'll show you a number of different techniques. So there could be things like you could be playing with dotting watercolor into watercolor when it's still wet, and you can create some interesting blossoms and pigment separations, or you could wait for it to dry and you could do some doodling with pencils. Again, that creates an interesting texture. So there's a number of different things you can do. Okay, now I want, what's Prussian green? Let me just remind myself. Oh yeah, that's perfect. So we've got now Prussian green. And Prussian green will go perfectly over here. So the brush I'm using is the Neptune by Princeton, and it's a round 4. Now, the Neptune brushes, they have very soft bristles, and they are great at mopping up water and keeping quite a bit of water. So when you're working on bigger illustrations, I'm trying to see where the line was. You see, I've taken it off, so I can't really see. When you're working on slightly bigger pieces, go with a bigger brush, because what you don't want is having a dry brush all the time. So when I was working on those squares, the original couple of sketches that I showed you, there I used much smaller brushes. And those were actually different brushes altogether. They were these ones here, the Heritage. So the bristles have a greater snapback. They're not as soft, and therefore they keep less water. Now, less chatting, so we don't forget our watercolor, because it can dry in a hard line. But then we just need to wiggle it, wiggle the brush on that area, and that way you won't have anything dry. So I'll show you a little trick here. Once you've done all of that, take some water and run it on this area. See what happens, because we should get some interesting blossoms and blooms. So that's just adding water. We're not adding any other colors into this. And if you take a pigment separating color, you can achieve more pigment separation that way, just to highlight it. So we've got lovely contrast here, and now we need to think what sort of colors we would like to add here. Would we like to kind of carry on with the oranges, or would we like something, let's see, I think I quite like to carry on with my greens. So I'm going to go into this, I think it's more muddier green. Still has plenty of yellow in there, by the way. That is gorgeous. And just being careful and slowing down only where I am getting to the edge of the other color. Like that. So I can do this top color, or I can do actually this one here. No, that will touch it. Okay, so I'll do the top color right there. Well, we don't have green gold there yet, so I'm going to go with green gold. And it's a really juicy green. One of my all-time favorite greens to have in a palette. Here we go. Okay, I will use the heat tool now again, and I'll come back. So one color I definitely want to use here is my chartreuse. It's a beautiful, beautiful green, and it's really, really popping. So I think I'll add it into this large area right here. You can always layer over the color. So if you, for example, think that there's a color that you'd like to change, you can go over it, and you can then even change the mediums. So you could go into acrylic inks, you could go into acrylic paint, heavy body, or even gouache or acrylic gouache. So if you wanted to bring a bit more opacity and cover up the color fully, there's always that option. Okay, so at the moment, as you can see here, we don't have a great contrast, and the colors are kind of like these two, fairly similar in the value. So what I would do is, instead of fuffing about with covering it with another color, today I will opt for adding some detail and doodling over one of the colors to shift the value. One more time I will dry this area and finish up with this little bush here. Okay, so let's see, I think I want this color here, which is a lovely green turquoise type of a color. And it should be a lovely contrast. So if I was doing finished painting, I would swap at this point to a smaller brush and really focus on getting those lines you know, perfectly aligned. But for a quick sketch like today, I'm just going to keep it easy. So just a little bit of texture like that. Okay, so these are all of our kind of color blocking done. And as you can see, we have great contrast kind of here, and there, and there. And then there's a group of colors here which are fairly similar. So we'll need to break that down by using pencils. So once again, this needs to be fully dry. In fact, all of it needs to be completely dry, not just damp to touch, because if it's damp to touch, it means that the pencil will not glide over the watercolor as we need it to do. So going to wait for that. In fact, I'm thinking, do I like this white space here or not? So sometimes, I'll show you an example. Like here, for example, oh, here, I fill that space with another bit of something. So I may or may not do, I don't know, haven't decided yet. Also, I kept the shapes quite simple today. Okay, I think I will actually settle it in, because at the moment it almost looks like a black moon. So I'm just going to go from here to like this way. So that will be maybe like one big type of a bush of some sort. So I'm going to repeat the same step with the kneadable eraser, and then we'll add color. So at the top, I'm going to go for Cascade Green, which is one of my favorite colors. Really like it, but I'm not going to make it too dark or too opaque. So I'm going to have a watered out version. And in fact, at this point, I think I shall switch my brush, because here I have added these shapes and I need a bit more precision. And this brush, you can use it like a pen. It's super precise because the bristles are keeping a good straight shape. And then I'll do that here as well. Basically going around everywhere, and then I can use a larger brush just to fill in the middle, because that would be faster. Or to avoid having hard lines, I might just use this brush. You can see it's harder to create watercolor effects with it because it doesn't hold the water. So you might want to work with two brushes at the same time. So over here now, I'm going to swatch to my other brush, load the pigment up, and just go in. And now just help yourself. To pull the color a bit more. There we go. Alright, and then this part, the third part. In fact, I should have started here, being right-handed, you should start with the far left and work yourself towards the right to avoid the smudging. So it looks like I'll have to do here the same thing. I'm just going to use this thin brush to get right into the corner here, which is quite tricky to do with a big brush. So same thing here, like that. Make sure you don't leave any wide gaps because that always looks unfinished and weird. Okay, so I can swap back and now just add the color. It feels a lot more joyful to work with watercolor like this, like with this brush. And then see if you need to push that color further. So again, we have a lovely contrast coming from the back, and now these colors kind of stand out a little bit more. So, last time waiting for everything to dry, or using the tool, whichever option you go for, and then we can move on to pencils.